Hello! So today we're taking a look at the PixelPlanes Breezer. Now Breezer is a German manufacturer that make this sport aircraft, and PixelPlanes is a developer I've never heard of before, but Aerosoft are selling this aircraft through their store online. So we're having a look at it in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So the exterior of the aircraft looks actually quite good at first glance, but then when you get quite close to it, it looks like the rivets are just painted on, which is a bit of a shame. But having said that, you know, the rest of it is very neat and tidy. So it's just hard to get away from the fact when you look closely at any of it, it's actually not that great. Not compared to, I think the bar has been raised so high by some of the aircraft that have come out recently. You can also see glitching happening inside the cockpit. So if we come around the outside and just having a look around, it's a nice looking aeroplane other than these little glitches. And I think PixelPlanes, I'm not sure if this is their first aircraft. I've never seen them with Flight Simulator before, so let's have a look. So the undercarriage is modelled nicely. There's even weld lines there on the metalwork. So looking underneath, the undercarriage bay just seems to be an extrusion of the 3D shape though, which is a bit odd. Okay, so we're not going to focus too much on that, so we're kind of starting to get an idea of where the limits are with this aircraft, I guess. It's interesting they've got PXP for PixelPlanes, I guess, is the layout of the LEDs. I can't imagine that the actual aircraft has that, but you never know. So let's move away from the drone camera and jump inside. So looking around inside with the head tracking, there doesn't seem to be any glitching happening when we're inside. It's quite neat and tidy. The rendering's quite good. Unfortunately, I've had a quick look at this already. You can't actually start the aircraft up from cold and dark. Either the switches are broken in terms of, you know, their functionality, or there's just something horrendously wrong with it. There's lots of bits and pieces that you can't quite click on unless there are particular click spots, but they're not obvious of how to get to them, like that one, for example, unfurled itself and then put itself away again. Okay, presumably, okay, that makes more sense. So we can pull this tablet out and use it as our chart. It's in German though, so presumably that's why we can flip it over. Can we get the English version? No, we can't. It's all in German. Okay. So from an accessibility point of view, that is not great, given that the majority audience for this simulator are not going to be able to read that. Anyway, but I guess we can look at things like the Russian aircraft in the simulator and the Ukrainian aircraft, and they've always got, you know, their own language, which gives an air of authenticity, and this is a German aircraft. Anyway, let's go and click on the X there, and that puts the clipboard back in. The animation's nice. So I haven't figured out how to get this started. So just to show you, that's in the on position already. That's the master power switch. You should be able to then put the fuel pump on. It's already on by the look of it. Look, the lane lights are lit up already. So we should be able to start the engine, and we can't, which is all a bit odd. Unless I'm just doing something horrendously wrong here. Lane A, lane B, that corresponds with the letters A and B, and then start, and nothing happens. It's not something crazy like the fuel tank, is it? Or I don't have to, like, I'm just going into software developer mode here a bit and trying to figure out what's going on. No. So what I'm going to do is press Control and E. Before we do that, it's worth pointing out the cabin canopy does open. So you can do that, and it does influence the sounds you hear, which is quite interesting. Okay, so let's press Control and E and watch these switches and see what changes. Nothing. So there's definitely something broken there. You can click on the tablet over here once you have power, and that gives you a navigation display. You also get aircraft options, but I don't think they're clickable. They are Oh, they are. I tell a lie. You have to be quite accurate at clicking on the words. Okay. So, let's go and take it for a fly. So it's obviously a work in progress. So it's they're being a bit cheeky, saying it's been released because it's a little bit rough around the edges in places. But we'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Take it for a fly. Okay, so it's a sport prototype aeroplane. So all you have is one lever for the throttle. We're at Mount Hotham, by the way, in Australia. So let's go and just have a quick look at the map. So there is a taxiway part of the way out of the runway, or we can just turn left and then head out across the runway. So let's try that. So the throttle pickup is incredibly slow. Obviously it doesn't weigh much and it has a lot of thrust by the look of it, which is interesting. So we'll just taxi down to the other end of the runway. I'm just watching if the instruments react appropriately. So I've never flown this before. I've taxied it once while I was looking at the switches just before recording. But I've not actually flown it yet, so it's going to be a voyage of discovery. I don't have any idea what it's going to fly like. So let's calibrate the... Whoa! It wanders around on the ground. Calibrate the altimeter. See how we get on. Okay, there are some markings here to aid us in turning the plane around, hopefully. Yeah, there's a turning area at the end of the runway here. It's a tiny little airfield here at Mount Hotham, but it's great fun. Okay, let's see how we get on. So full throttle. So it's pulling right quite hard. So I'm countering that with the rudder. Coming up through 90 knots, we'll pull back gently and we're in the air. So it weighs hardly anything. So gear up. Let's have a look at the animation. Nicely done, isn't it? The pilot isn't against the seat, which is a bit of a shame. It's quite odd, doesn't it? Okay, so it's accelerating out through 140 knots. It can hold quite a steep climb as well. Okay, let's let the nose fall back down to the horizon. Turn back in towards the reciprocal of the airfield direction. Up in the cloud already. Okay, so we're bordering on the limits of the airframe speed there. So it's incredibly quick, and you do need to be mindful of that. So with that in mind, let's go full throttle while we're nearly at maximum speed and lift it up into the vertical. Oh, it's trying to move around on us. And let it fall over. Interesting. It wants to go fast all the time. It's a job to stop it going fast, to be honest. So we're back at idle on the engine, just rolling in, and it's holding 140 knots in the glide here. So we'll roll it in along the axis of the runway. I wonder what it's like with rolling, so we'll put the nose up. It's quite stable in a roll. What about if we go for a loop? So we'll turn back along the runway direction in a moment. So let's just, you can see it's very precise in terms of roll. Not quite so precise in terms of pitch. Okay, so we're coming in. At 20 knots below maximum speed, and we pull up into a loop. The wind is pushing us around quite alarmingly. Okay. So it's good fun to fly around. The throttle response is quite odd in that it's quite slow to respond to the throttle. Let's just do a climbing turn. And what about if we do a slower roll? Seems to be okay. I wonder what it stalls like, so let's climb back out into the clouds while we're going downwind. Cut the throttle, so throttle is at idle. You can see the RPM takes a while to die off. So I'm holding nose up, attitude. There goes, and it's dropped the right wing, holding the elevator in to see what happens. So what if we force it with the right rudder and full elevator? No, it's just mushing basically. So it doesn't want to spin. Let's climb, get some more altitude back. So we're 2,000 feet above ground level at the moment. Will shortly be 3,000. It climbs like nobody's business. I don't seem to be having much luck with the weather today. Okay, let's try this then. So put it into a really steep climb. So the interesting thing is, as soon as it goes nose down, it picks up enough speed that it then won't stall. Okay, let's see if we can let it fall into a spin. Okay, I've let go. That's a fully developed spin. And it's not going to come out. So it's unrecoverable once it gets into that. Oh no, we might have a chance. No, that would have crashed. Yeah. So, I've obviously got damage switched off. Interestingly, look, it's trying to fly still through the trees. But you get the idea there. Once you do get it into it, it's difficult to spin. When it does spin, you can't really get it out in a hurry. So you're going to need a good few thousand feet to encourage it back out of the spin. Which was interesting. It's interesting the sticks don't move around much. Look, there's hardly any throw there. Okay, so we've had our bit of fun with it. Let's go and loop back round to the airfield and bring it back in. It feels like it's about 75% finished, if I'm honest. It doesn't have the fidelity of some of the other aircraft in the sim, but then if it's a new developer, they're obviously learning their trade. But then it's quite expensive given the cost. Interesting, the flaps had come down of their own accord there. The lever wasn't down. How strange. Okay, so gear down, and we are just coming up to flaps range, so we'll drop the flaps. We're obviously high, but we're going to try side slipping it as well. So it's quite controllable in the side slip. It loses altitude like a brick in side slip. No, remember we're into quite a strong headwind as well though. So we're getting away with this quite handily actually. You have to remember that that throttle pickup is very slow. And it floats, look, a little bit of nose up and it lifted itself. It's very light. That said, we came in at about 35 knots, which is crazy. Okay, let's just taxi in. I'll put the flaps back up. So it's good fun. I think it's quite expensive though, given that it's not got the best modelling yet. Whether it will get updated in short order, I don't know. I was quite disconcerting that you can't do a cold dark startup by the look of it. So it'll be interesting to see if cutting the magnetos actually cuts the propeller, or the engine. Let's go and park outside the terminal here at Mount Hotham. So the wheel brakes work. Okay, so if we go and... yeah, that did stop the engine then. It's a bit abrupt with the propeller, but maybe it's a carbon fibre propeller for all we know. And the power does cut the avionics, which is interesting, seeing as some of the other switches were a bit dubious. Okay, so the main avionics switch was over here. EFIS should have been off by default, I would imagine. That's this system here. But okay, so I think it's good. I think the only problem is that other aircraft have become so good in the simulator, it kind of shows up aircraft that are maybe not quite as high fidelity. So there we go anyway. So this is the new aircraft available from Aerosoft. I'm not sure, does it have a label of the manufacturer in it? I'm not sure that it even does. No, it's got like, it's interesting, isn't it, when you start digging into these kind of details to see if they have left much, you know, it's just got the model number really. So Breezer Sport 915 ISC. It's yeah, it's interesting. We can't click on that one, that's a shame. So looking behind us, there is a bag in the back. I'm not sure if the weights will affect that. Should we try that? So if we say payload and zero that out, no, it had no effect on the 3D assets. That's a bit of a shame. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Who knows, maybe they will update this and fix some of those little issues with the startup procedures, because if that gets sorted, it'll actually probably be quite good fun. But until that's done, I can't see myself flying it very much. So anyway, there we go. The Breezer from Aerosoft, from Pixel Pilots, I think they were called, weren't they? If we fire up the Aerosoft One application, where we bought it from, we can have a quick look at that. So if we go Flight Simulator, yeah, PixelPlanes, sorry, not Pixel Pilot. Oh, it's just switched into German now. Oh, here we go, it's just switched back. PixelPlanes Breezer Sport. And it's got a mind of its own, and their application has now lost its mind completely. So you can see it's €24, which was about £20, something like that. So it's not horrendously expensive, but given that it's a little bit non-functional and the quality of the body, I mean, this may be very accurate. They may be all flush screws everywhere. It's just, should we go back to the, just out of interest, I'm going to go really close to it with the drone camera. So yeah, it's interesting that there are some flush screws there, but there's also dots, which if we get really close to them, oh, maybe we've been doing it a disservice. They are like Allen bolts, aren't they? They are actually modelled. So when you get really close to them, they are actually modelled as 3D assets, which is interesting. But strangely, there's a shadow under the paint, which is, it's almost, yeah, the paint is on top of the surface look. That's odd. That's very odd. Anyway, let's leave it there for the moment. And we'll see you again soon. So that was the Breezer Sport in Microsoft Flight Simulator.